What do you mean 2024 is over? That's absurd. There's no way the year's already over. What the hell, dude? What a year that made me feel tired, but also a little bit relieved, I suppose. You know, a lot of complicated things going on in the world and personal life. I won't get too much into any of that. Just know that the world continues to be a chaotic place, so let's not even talk about it. Instead, let's talk about all the games that made the year worth gaming. Before we even begin the top 10 though, let me just do a quick series of honorable mentions. Games that I enjoyed that I don't have room to talk about in full, alright? Real rapid fire stuff. Ready? Halls of Torment. Perfect evolution of the survivor genre, wearing the skin of Diablo 1. Mouthwashing. Disturbing little nightmare you get to live in non-chronological order. Thank goodness you're here. British humor dialed up to 11 with Matt Berry in it. Iron Meat, the best Contra game to happen in decades. Satisfactory, pure, uncut addiction in an automation game. Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth, a great return to the Yakuza RPG experience. Alright, whew, now I feel better. Didn't have room for all of those, but I liked them enough that I wanted to mention them at the very least. But now, onto the real meat and potatoes of the experience. The 10 games that triggered the most dopamine release in my brain and kept me coming back for more. Alright, coming in at number 10, I'm gonna be honest with you. This was originally Peglin's spot, but then, after consideration, I realized there's another game that I like more than Peglin. It has more going for it. It brings more to the table. And that's gonna be our first entry here, but we're gonna be winging it, so it's gonna be a little off kilter compared to the rest, which were all scripted ahead of time, carefully written down, but not this one. Which is strangely apropos, I would say. Also, I am definitely coming down with something, so excuse the voice. Also, I'm in New York, so weird audio. Man, there's so much going on. Anyway, the first entry here is Shogun Showdown. Shogun Showdown, first of all, I gotta get this out of the way, just a stellar soundtrack. My god, every track is an absolute banger. I love the soundtrack to this game. It's incredible. Now, Shogun Showdown is a roguelike. You may recognize some features. It's got that random encounters, a map, permadeath. You're working your way up, escalating difficulty every time you win a run, multiple characters with all of their various traits. It's good stuff. What sets it apart, though, is this is a game that is simultaneously fast-paced and agonizingly slow, but in a good agonizingly slow way. You see, Shogun Showdown is a game about planning, reacting, and execution. Everything's about cooldowns. Every ability you have has a cooldown. You can queue up multiple abilities, knowing that those cooldowns are going to start at the same time, but each one's a different length. All of your opponents are also queuing up their abilities. So it's all about positioning, planning, and execution. Each character has a unique movement ability or a unique enemy movement ability that makes them play wildly different, which is very surprising. And the game is just stellar. It's just really good. It's incredibly well thought out. Everything plays crisp and clean, and anytime you do well, you feel like you are a genius. It makes you feel like you're a cross between Stephen Hawking and Neo from The Matrix. You just feel like a raging badass. And as you progress through the escalating difficulty, the game throws you curveballs. Enemies will queue up their abilities faster, or they'll have armor, or they will gain shields. There are new enemy types. They'll be attacking on the left and the right. And all of your abilities that you slowly accumulate over the course of a run all feel very satisfying, and they give you so much room to plan and execute these various moves. You can queue up an arrow to hit someone from far away. You can then do a spin attack to hit the guy behind you, and finally do an attack that teleports you to the furthest target ahead of you, which will then kill that target, take you out of range of an enemy attack. It's great. You might have situations where you're essentially cursing multiple people and executing a move to kill them all off at the same time. You're always moving, planning, and queuing things up. And as you go through and you encounter these shrines, you're given these opportunities to make risky moves. But it really feels good. It feels good to encounter these things and change up how your entire utility bar of moves. Oh my god, not having a script is bad for me, huh? Don't worry, the rest are all scripted. All I can tell you is that it's incredibly satisfying to queue up a series of abilities that see you rip through several enemies, move through other attacks, set them up so they're hitting each other. You just feel so cool. I feel bad that this didn't get a proper script, but it was a last minute change. I'm coming down with a cold. I'm in New York. Everything's against me, but I had to give Shogun Showdown its due. It's definitely deserving of being in the top 10 list. It's a game I want to play more of. I've kind of been jonesing for it recently. I've been playing a lot of Caves of Cud, which is still phenomenal. But I've been hearing the call of Shogun Showdown. And you should too. You should check it out. Alright, on to the proper scripted dialogue. You need a nice way to unwind after a bit of high crucible peglin? Well, choose carefully with number 9, because this next game ranges from brutally difficult to delightfully whimsical. It's UFO 50. This is almost like cheating here, because UFO 50 isn't a game. It's literally 50 games. Full games, too, not micro games. We're not talking WarioWare or anything like that. You have, in this game, feature-rich, robust games from basically every genre in this bad boy. Well, every genre you'd expect to find on 8-bit and 16-bit consoles. You've got deck builders, point-and-click adventure games, horror, shooter, platformer, Metroidvania, they're all here. Some of them are multiplayer, others are single-player, many are both. There are secret little threads that link between them to form their own strange story. It's really an experience. I still have plenty more games in here that I need to try, let alone beat, and some of them are compelling enough that I feel that pull to find all of their secrets. It's a love letter to an entire generation, or two really, of the video game experience, all in one game. Speaking of love letters, number 8 is a prime example of how to make a game that takes inspiration from a classic without just being a shameless copy or a soulless husk parading around in something else's skin. It's Crow Country. You can feel Resident Evil in your bones while playing this game, yet it doesn't have that fixed camera angle, and the character models are more akin to classic Final Fantasy VII than Resident Evil, and even the environment is a failed amusement park, not your standard Resident Evil fare. On the surface, very little is outright reminiscent of Resident Evil, but you still sense it through the gameplay and the slow reveal of the story. It really is artfully done. Explore the titular Crow Country, slowly unraveling the mysteries of why the park failed and the dark secrets held within. Of course, the park isn't the only thing with secrets to reveal. The characters you meet, and hey, even your character has a few secrets to learn about them as well. I loved every minute of the game from my Halloween playthrough, and I love the post-game content that unlocks at the end. Very reminiscent of all the good stuff you remember from Resident Evil when you beat the game and you go back in and suddenly have unlimited ammo or a rocket launcher with unlimited rockets. That fun, like, okay, I've done the work, now I get to play experience. Anything that lures you back in for another trip, even if you've already found most of the secrets, is a good thing in my book. Too many horror games fall into walking and hiding simulators. I need more games that seek to grab the feelings that I found in Resident Evils and Silent Hills, which for me are the sweet spots of survival horror. I don't need any more games about hiding in a closet, waiting for something to walk away. Speaking of genres that I want more entries in, tactical gameplay is always something I want. Final Fantasy Tactics is obviously one of my all-time favorite games. But I feel like most tactical games dip into a well flavored by that game. A rarely but still delicious well I wish more games would dip into is the well flavored by Ogre Battle. Thankfully, number 7 does just that. Unicorn Overlord is a beautiful game, a gorgeous game. I could stare at the character art and animations for hours and be happy. It's just glorious to behold. It's a real treat that playing the game is just as good, and the story ain't bad either. Playing like a cross between Ogre Battle, Final Fantasy Tactics, and Fire Emblem, you take the role of a deposed prince looking to take back his kingdom from the general who betrayed and murdered his family. You build squads of units that complement each other's strengths and cover their weaknesses. You deploy them across the battlefield to defend your stronghold and intercept enemies, and topple the enemy keeps and strongholds. Your units will auto-battle once you engage an enemy squad, but it's not so simple as 2 stat blocks mathing it out. You have an almost insane degree of control over what skills are used, how those skills are used, and when they're used by each of your characters. It's akin to programming in many ways. Specify the exact conditions under which each and every skill will be used by all of your characters. You want to avoid wasting heals on high health tank characters? Just make it so your healer will only use their heal abilities on the front line, and only when they go under a certain percentage. It's amazing. You tell your assassins to focus on high value targets. Make the archer ignore anything that doesn't have wings. You can even make it so certain abilities are only used at night if you want. It's incredibly satisfying to spend your time gearing up and programming a new squad and watching them pull a well-built enemy squad apart. The arena even lets you square up against other players' builds to test all kinds of combinations and matchups. It's incredibly satisfying. I just really like this game. And honestly, I haven't finished it yet, and it's all I could think about while I'm stuck here without my console. Remember when I said more games should be like Silent Hill? Well, number 6 does that pretty well by just straight up being a remake of Silent Hill 2. It's Silent Hill 2 Remake, that's number 6. Silent Hill 2 Remake is a strange and remarkable beast. It's Silent Hill 2, which you remember, or maybe not, I don't know if you played it, but it's also not Silent Hill 2. It's more akin to a remix than a remake, really. You, of course, have the expected graphical upgrades, and what upgrades they are. You could feel the damp air clinging to you and smell the decrepitude in every scene. The game looks gross, but in the most beautiful way. Sound design is also top-notch, very squelchy, with disgusting enemies belching blood and vomit your way, or collapsing into heaps of violence as you pound them down with a metal pipe. Very crunchy. These modern amenities recreate the scenes and locations you remember, but again, not quite the same. They're much bigger, for one thing. The apartments are easily twice as large, the hospital as well. The locations are just completely massive, comparatively huge to the first game. This could be both good and bad. The tight pacing in the original worked really well for me, and it really paired with the disorientation that James experienced. In the remake, the larger, almost more leisurely pace allows you to really sink into the horror and gives everything an otherworldly, dreamlike feel. But in a horror game, this is a tricky space to navigate. For some people, it replaces the scares with the doldrums of wanting to see a new setting, to get done with what you're doing and experience a new horror. Turning what may have been a tense race to escape a building into an hours-long hunt for keys and puzzle solutions where the familiarity breeds comfort. It's no longer as alien and scary. But again, it also means you can kind of lull yourself into this dream-like, meditative states as you wander around, and it makes it all the more strange and alien. Similarly, some of the characters' interactions have changed, with some of them being better and others being, for me, worse. I don't want to get into spoilers or anything, but there's one character interaction in particular that I feel missed the mark. But it really depends on how much loyalty you have to the original experience in your heart. For you, it might not matter. If you never played the original, you won't notice any of this at all. These are all just quibbles for someone that likes the original game. But overall, despite these objections born entirely from a time spent with the original game, this is a masterclass experience in modern survival horror. I highly recommend it. It's quite the experience. Not to mention, again, a remix more than a remake. Anytime you feel like you have a real good handle on what's going on, the game does kinda pivot, and you will be surprised. Now, speaking of masterclass, number 5 is such a pure experience. It's distilled gameplay down to its most creamy, crunchy core. There is literally zero fat on the bones of what is perhaps the quintessential deck builder of our time. It's Balatro. Now, Balatro is poker, already a game refined over years and years to something that many of us have absorbed entirely through cultural osmosis without ever having played the game at all. Like, you might not have never played poker, but I guarantee you understand most of the terms, and you probably even know a good amount of the hands. It's a smart move to use poker as the basis for your game. You take the bones of poker, this relatively simple structure, and you add to it a system of raising the stakes of the ante each hand. It's very simple. The win condition is a higher number each round, requiring only that you put together winning poker hands to generate value. Where it gets fun is you replace the cards in your deck, you remove them, you change them, you refine that deck to make the best hands possible as likely as you can. Make it so you always get a straight. Make it so flushes are inevitable. Collect jokers to interact with cards or generate the values for you. It's so simple, so pure, and yet incredibly addictive. You slowly unlock new decks and new cards and new jokers, and the difficulties that change the experience in such a fundamental way as to reignite the addiction over and over and over again. It's great. There are no bosses. I mean, there are boss blinds, like the ante will have a particular element to it called a boss blind, but You're not fighting anything. There's no system you need to learn, no patterns. It's just another number to overcome with a little twist. It might debuff some cards. It might make it so you have to sell a joker. It might shuffle your jokers because the order of your jokers is important. No story. Oh, Benji's doing some barking. Benji, no, I'm gonna have to start over now. But yes, there are no traditional bosses to fight, no paths to navigate, no story to bog you down. It's just pure, unadulterated, roguelike deck-building fun. It's no wonder this game has exploded into such a cultural phenomenon as to spawn tie-ins with almost every other indie darling of the past decade, and get Game of the Year nods. Most games have some kind of inspiration you could easily trace back to another game or media. Even Dark Souls, a game that arguably spawned one of the most influential subgenres in years, can easily be traced back to a love of the manga Berserk, and a few other things. Balatro feels like it was spawned entirely from some dimension of pure gameplay. Everyone should own Balatro. It's a fundamental experience, and you should play it, you should live it, you should own it, you should love it. Now, of course, not having obvious sources of inspiration is not a bad thing. Sometimes taking two things you love and making something new out of the component parts is all it takes to create something amazing, like chocolate and peanut butter being more than the sum of their parts in deliciousness. For me, that's taking The Binding of Isaac and Noita and creating our number 4 entry. Magicraft has the frenetic, irreverent, rogue-like action of The Binding of Isaac. It's rooms filled with enemies and a character sprite that goes from recognizably human to a trash goblin of weird relics and effects. Of course, if that was all it was, it would be a little boring. I have plenty of Isaac left to play, plenty of Isaac ripoffs to play, and my god, there's just no end to games that are basically Isaac. No. Magicraft goes and takes the wand building systems of Noita, one of my all-time favorite games, and slams that into the Isaac-style top-down chaos. Both Isaac and Noita are games where runs live and die on finding combinations that are either powerful or downright stupid and game-breaking. Having both of those systems in Magicraft means I get to put wands together that tank my frame rate, crash the game outright, or threaten to develop a fresh seizure disorder in my brain. Chaining spells that cast other spells that end in explosions of yet more spells. Black holes that end in supernovas. Giant trolls that literally pick up and shoot my other summons out of a cannon. Granting sentience to 6 wands that all do different things. Orbiting swords. So many amazing ways to play with magic while squinting at a screen awash in colors and particles. It gets so off the wall. The game has to include options for spell transparency just so you can keep track of what's going on. It's such chaotic beauty. The game's translation is a bit wonky, but who cares? That just adds to the charm of the weird world your character is trying to liberate from the demon lord so he can get with all the hot monster ladies he saved. The climb through various difficulties and unlocking all the spells was a delight for me, and I look forward to finding all the remaining secrets that still remain in the game. I've really enjoyed all of my time with this one, and I hope you give it a look. It feels like it's really flown under a lot of folks' radars, but if you like Isaac, if you like Noita, especially if you like both, do yourself a favor and check it out. Now this, of course, brings us to the top dogs, the big 3. 2 of these 3 I've devoted just a disgusting amount of playtime to, and continue to devote a disgusting amount of playtime to. I can't get enough of them. Number 3, though, deserves more time from me, but once the story wrapped and I 100% completed the content, I kind of fell off. But one day, it'll get more time from me when I start playing all those delicious community levels. That's right, it's Tactical Breach Wizards. This game is perfect. Seriously, I got no complaints about this one. It's got a tight story, memorable characters, satisfying gameplay, and optional challenges for players to aspire towards. I love this game. Let's start with the story. You get a fun mystery you put together with classic thumbtacks and thread on a corkboard, which was a delight. I like when those kind of systems that could easily just be a background storyboard sequence, like just a way for the story to move, is actually interactive with the player. I am able to click on things and learn more. I get to direct where the threads go. I move things around. It makes it feel personal, even though it is essentially staged in the same every playthrough. It makes it feel personal. It literally allows you to form the connections as you play. You learn about the characters and locations as you map out the mysteries and the main actors and the settings all on this little corkboard. Good choice. Excellent work, game. There's also fantasy political intrigue, personal stakes from the characters, and the major beats inform the gameplay. It's basically a 101 class on how to integrate a story into your game without boring the player and making it feel real and lived in. It's excellent. It of course helps that the writing is incredibly strong and filled with personality, both from the writer of the game and the characters they're writing. And such characters they are, each with a distinct personality and wit that they leverage in every scene to establish their feelings on the events as they eventually unfold. You got a PI who wants to help but is also trying to prove themselves to themselves. You have a grizzled vet with skin in the game, a freedom fighter, a freelance medic out for revenge, a hitman with a secret. I love them all. Gameplay-wise, you choose how your characters advance with their abilities, allowing you to forge your own playstyle as approach turn-based combat like a series of deadly puzzles. Throw enemies out of a window, accrue extra turns, and simply outpace them into the dirt. Use a berserk ability on the heavy enemies so they kill the other enemies for you. Place your own walls to slam people into them. Everything feels, sounds, and looks great in this game. If you have even the slightest love for tactical gameplay, this is the game for you. And again, if you like a good story, you should jump in. If you like good humor in your writing, get in here. You got a solid 20-ish hours of gameplay that are extended by all of the optional objectives you get to hunt down, and with community support, it means you could play an infinite number of community levels. It's just, I wanna just sing its praises for a while, but I gotta keep moving here. Number 2 is a bit of departure for me, in that it is not a single-player game at all. I enjoy multiplayer experiences, but as a sometimes food, I'm really more of a single-player man when you get right down to it, and multiplayer tends to be a special treat, you know? Most memorable games for me are just about me experiencing a story, something I could lose myself in. Helldivers 2 is just that damn special. It, honestly, shouldn't work as well as it does. The gameplay is incredibly tight and satisfying. There are few shooters that can compare when it comes to just making the act of pulling a trigger or throwing a grenade feel this good. You got deep thuds, loud cracks, reverberating explosions. They punctuate every moment of the game as you shoot bugs, robots, and psionic aliens in what is truly the most chaotic depiction of war ever put to pixel. The precision, the fidelity is wrapped up in a satire that runs from surface level to the deepest recesses of the gameplay itself. And it's laid on thick too, with plenty of cues taken directly from Verhoeven's Starship Troopers. Authority figures lay it on thick, the importance of the fight and of obeying your democracy officers. The giant TV on your ship blares out propaganda from strawman news, assuring you that the war is totally just and important and that you are the good guys. Yet your character is literally being fired out of a gun on your ship, riding inside a literal bullet as one of countless expendable lives that are hurled at a problem from a command that goes totally unseen. Sacrifice 20 more lives to raise a flag that no one will see. Secure mineral surveys to make sure we get all the goodies. Collect more oil. Sometimes you even do normal war stuff like destroying important military installations. This is all just background radiation, of course, as you accidentally nuke your buddies or get launched across the map from an errant bullet hitting an explosive flower. The frenetic and chaotic combat and ever-pervasive friendly fire make every moment of the game vacillate wildly between epic war scene and comical farce. Take down enemy dropships while music swells. Have one of those dropships land on your buddy who is holding a massive orbital bombardment marker. Everyone dies. But you clear the mission. The panic to get on board the shuttle as the LZ gets swarmed by bugs is always hilarious as well. The game is just pure, unadulterated fun. Just straight up, like every time you play it, you're gonna have a good time. There's a reason why this is my most played game of 2024. Literally, it is my most played game. Steam even let me know. I have put an embarrassing amount of time into this game. I can't get enough of it. It's incredible. Nothing goes from like drama to comedy as often as this game does. I love it. Even through several controversies and some of the most wild balance changes I've ever seen, it continues to be a delight to boot this game up. If you're not playing Helldivers 2, I suggest you change that now. And this all culminates with bringing us to the number 1 spot. Now this will be no surprise for literally anyone who's ever been here before and has watched even a little bit of me. If you know me at all, you know what number 1 is. Hell, I've been waiting to make this game my game of the year for years now. Every year just waiting for that early access tag to drop and a 1.0 to appear, and my chance to say it's the best is finally here. Caves of Qud is my game of the year, my game of the decade. It is such a good game. It's so damn good. Of course, I have a bit of bias here. This game is like the perfect intersection of many things that I really like. You've got roguelike gameplay, RPG character progression, a weird/deep history, both bespoke and randomly generated, a future so far flung as to appear totally alien, strange creatures, insane character creation depth, an interesting story, and so much emergent gameplay and story possibility. Let's get the static stuff out of the way, alright? The parts of the game that are the same every run. The general spoiler-free story is that you get wrapped up in the discovery of a signal coming from outer space. The implication is that in the long-forgotten past, this planet was locked down and denied access to the greater spacefaring cosmos. The outer space community said, you guys suck, you're not allowed to come into our playground. This signal may just be a sign that that sentence is up. We're welcome back into the community. We're ready to go to space. Or it could be something else entirely. I'll never tell. Now you travel across the expansive world doing quests, getting stronger, and slowly advancing towards unraveling the mystery of that signal while thwarting the Pudis Templar, who are basically fantasy racists and Nazis. They suck. Murder them on sight. You're also dealing with these ancient plagues that have befallen the land in the far distant past, and due to the signal acting up, are suddenly active once more. It's good stuff. Deep game systems make replaying that story fun and exciting every single time, and of course, you can ignore that story outright and make your own adventures in the world. That's my favorite part of this game, is just on the course of doing the main plot, I always get pulled into these weird little mini stories that are entirely of my own design, but I don't even realize it. It's just emergent storytelling happening because of all these intersecting systems in the game. Like having a party member who suddenly I realize, oh no, they can't use their weapon because they have a fungal infection on their arm. Their hand is a mushroom now. How are we gonna fix this? I'm gonna go on a quest to get experience points so I can learn how to amputate a limb. I'm gonna chop off his limb, and then we have to get an item that'll let me regrow his limb. A whole story about medical need just flourished out of nowhere. Incredible. No game does this for me like Caves of Cud. Every playthrough, this kind of stuff happens, and I go on amazing little adventures that are completely emergent. Now, a real big part of the fun of this game for me comes from the character creation process. You want to be a cyborg? Go for it. There's a lot of room there. I'm talking, you could be human with half of your body as a tank, like tank treads for legs. You want robot arms on your back, so you got 6 hands, so you could shoot 6 pistols at once and be that one puppet from Puppet Master? Go for it. How about you just punch people with robot hands? What if you had giant hands? What if your skin was made of glitter? Be the cyborg that you want to be. Or you could be a mutant, growing dozens of extra body parts, all bristling with weapons. Or you could sport burrowing claws and expel various gases and just cut through the environment like it's made of butter. Maybe you want to be a psychic and blow people's minds. Or use that Esper power to dominate the body of literally any body in the game. Like you could boot up a character, give them the dominate feature, find any creature or character in the game world, dominate their mind, murder your original body, and now you're playing the game as a spider, or as a donkey, or as an antelope, or a little snapjaw, and like just live a snapjaw life. You could play the game as anything you want with just that one ability. It's amazing. See how the other side lives. You can mix and match physical and mental mutations as you see fit as well. The build variety is staggering, and that's before you even take into account the skills you can learn and explore. Play the game however you want. Even the core experience is tailorable to how you want to play. You want to do classic roguelike permadeath? Go for it. That's classic mode. Although, fun fact, if you're like me and you die and you're like, alright, I don't want to accept this particular death, just Alt F4 and boot the game back up. Congratulations, you've avoided permadeath. I'm sorry to teach you how to cheat, but sometimes you just want to. Anyway, why not turn on RPG mode if you don't want to cheat and you want that to be built in? Bada bing, bada boom, now you have save points as you progress. You could roll back and you're okay. It encourages you to experiment and learn. I like and recommend RPG mode for new players. And even seasoned veterans that just want to have a less stressful experience. Or you know what? Maybe you don't want any stress at all. Turn on Wanderer mode and just explore a combat-free experience and just chat and explore. Meet the people of Cut. All 3 ways are perfectly viable. All 3 ways are fully supported. It's great. I never get tired of this game. And watching the confused faces of friends and family as I tell them about the time I tamed an ooze and slowly fed it every liquid in the game until it became a massive 37-armed pseudopod nightmare creature that was basically unstoppable, and one day, it got cloned, and the clones were feral and not friendly to me, and suddenly I had created the most dangerous enemy in the game, and I just murdered me. I became my own architect of my defeat. Or how about that time I ran around harvesting various body parts with a man made of 7 arms that all wielded axes, and I just collected body parts. I was the body part collector, just for fun. Or that time I made a powerful psychic, such a powerful psychic, and I gave myself the evil twin defect, and then I cloned myself 12 times, and every clone had an evil twin. And of course, me and each of my clones were being hunted by interdimensional psychic hunters, hell-bent on eating our brains to grow stronger, because they plotted on releasing an interdimensional god that was sealed on this earth. Yeah, that's right. Take that all in. That all happened. That was a wild run. That one, we crashed the game a few times. Things got so out of hand, having so many clones, so many evil twins, and so many psychics all showing up doing high-level psychic abilities. I broke that run. That was a broken game by the end. The confluence of so many psychic powers managed to crash my game and ruin World Gen by the end. It was amazing. I don't want to like harp on too much, but boy howdy, every time I play this game, I have an incredible time, and I walk away with weird stories to tell. Everyone deserves to try Caves of Cut. And I know it's intimidating. Like, you look at this thing and it looks like an impenetrable alien experience. For a lot of people, it reminds them of Dwarf Fortress, a similarly deep, dense experience. But do not be dissuaded. Do not let fear motivate you. Give this game a try. Really just let it wash over you, sink into it, and experience it. Plus, the music in this game is incredible. Just a phenomenal soundtrack. Well, there you have it. The 10 games that left the biggest impressions on me in 2024. As always, there were some other games that would have made the list, but they're all still in early access, so I guess we wait on those. What games made your top 10 list? Is your list different from mine? Tell me. I need to know. What were your winners for the year? What were your losers? Anyway, I hope your 2025 is a good one. Be sure to like and subscribe if you had a good time. And if you want to hang out, come find me on Twitch and say hello in the Discord. If you want to support the channel, check out the Patreon. For now, stay safe, have fun, and me and Benji, well, we'll see you when we see you. Bye-bye.